So, last time I told you how two of my friends and their families had close calls with serial killers, the Night Stalkers. But believe it or not, I actually have a third story of a close call with a serial killer. So, I knew a woman from a class I was taking, and she told me that her mother moved to San Francisco in the 1980s. And she went to a rental office, I think it was in the Haight District. And while she was looking for places to rent, a man approached her. And he said that he had a room that they were renting out, and he gave her his phone number and said, if you're interested, call me, we can show you around. But she had a weird feeling about the guy. He kind of gave her some creepy vibes, so she never contacted him. And then maybe a couple of years later, she saw the guy on the news, and it was Charles Ng. He and Leonard Lake worked together to commit some of the most heinous serial murders in California history. So Leonard Lake had these sick fantasies about capturing women. He imagined that if there were ever a nuclear war and society were wiped out, he would be one of the survivors and he would keep a harem of enslaved women. When Charles Ng and Leonard Lake met, they immediately clicked. They had both been in the military, they had both gotten in trouble with the law, and Leonard Lake was a lot older, so Charles Ng saw him as kind of like a father-like figure who would teach him how to go on these killing sprees. So Leonard Lake was living in a cabin in Calaveras County, and there he actually built a bunker that he called the dungeon, which was a place that he was planning to hold and abuse women that he kidnapped. They went on to kill several people in San Francisco, including a whole family. So the Dub family put an ad in the newspaper that they were selling their audiovisual equipment, and Charles Ng and Leonard Lake answered the ad saying they were interested, so they went to the couple's apartment. And then they kidnapped the entire family. They immediately killed the man and the baby, and they kept the woman hostage for weeks, raping her, torturing her, and filming everything until they got tired and killed her. As time went on, they grew even bolder, and they actually went after their neighbors. They kidnapped another family, Lonnie Wayne Bond and his girlfriend, Brenda Sue O'Connor, both in their 20s, their 1-year-old baby, and a friend. Again, the adult men and the baby were immediately killed, and the woman was kept for weeks, abused in the most horrific ways you can imagine. And the serial killer duo would have continued, but Charles Ng's habit of stealing things actually got them caught. So they went to a lumber store, and Charles tried to steal something, so the store managers called the police, and the police came. Charles Ng fled, but they were able to arrest Leonard Lake. And when they took Leonard Lake down to the police station, Leonard Lake actually swallowed a cyanide pill that he had sewn in his shirt in case he were caught by the police. So he died. We fled to Canada, and they couldn't get him back here to the United States to go on trial. But in the meantime, they were investigating everything. They went on their property in Calaveras County, and they found pieces of bones all over the property. There were so many bones that they weighed 45 pounds in total. But some of them were so deteriorated to the point where they couldn't identify who they belonged to. But they also found horrific evidence. Like I said before, they filmed their crimes, and they saw what happened to some of the people there. There's even one clip where this woman is tied up and she's in an armchair and she's screaming hysterically for her baby. And they're just mocking her and laughing and saying that they're going to kill her baby or that they killed her baby, and it's absolutely horrific. Charles Ng was free in Canada until he started shoplifting again, and there he shot an employee of a store, and only after that was he captured by Canadian authorities. And they held him in trial there for stealing and attempted murder, and so it took 4 years for the United States to get him back here to put him on trial. And Charles Ng was able to use all kinds of tactics to drag on the trial, to delay everything, and it cost I think $11 million to go through the trial with him. But finally, he was found guilty of the murders, and he has been on death row since then, since the 80s. They're still identifying victims because forensic science has advanced a lot since 40 years ago. So recently, they identified one of the victims as being a young man, Reginald Reggie Frisbee, and also they identified Brenda Sue O'Connor's bones. And they were finally able to send her back to her family to have a proper burial. So they were convicted of killing 11 people, but police think they may have killed up to 25 people. And again, Charles Ng is still alive, sitting on death row today in the California Medical Facility. So can you imagine if my friend's mother had said yes and went to visit the place that they said they were going to rent? It's crazy how one decision, yes or no, can completely change the outcome of your life.